Good evening, everybody. Welcome to St. Joe, Missouri. Hopefully, you all can hear me. Just trying to get the microphone set up and everything. Looks like we've got hopefully a fairly decent connection. Hopefully, you can let me know in the comments, and that hopefully that you can see and hear everything okay. Yes, coming to you from St. Joseph, Missouri, where obviously the Chiefs rookies, quarterbacks, and their injured players are coming back. Reported to camp earlier today. We heard from Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. So I imagine you might have questions about some of the things that we heard today, some of the situations with the players and the veterans that are coming back, and some of the injuries. We did get an update from Andy Reid about some of those guys, and we'll let you know. Cody says pretty good for a guest wireless at a college. Um, yeah, we are on that. Although when I checked it earlier, I was getting like 200, 300 megs. So hopefully, there's no students on campus for the most part. And we do have, the Chiefs come in and set up their own Wi-Fi. So hopefully we'll be okay. Um, but probably get a lot of questions, and I see there's a couple of questions already about things that I was going to address anyway. We won't have as much time tonight as we usually do because I am going to get kicked out of the building at about 8 o'clock. So probably only an hour tonight, and Nick is going to try and join a little early as well. So we might just go lightning round pretty quickly tonight to make sure we can get all your questions in and everything. And I'll try not to, go on too many meandering stories this evening, so we can get everybody's questions in and hopefully cover a lot of ground. Um, Des the Gym, one of our great members here. Des, always appreciate you. Will the rookies and quarterbacks practice at all before Sunday? Yep. The rookies and quarterbacks and some of the injured players that are here will take part in practices over the next couple of days. The first the rookie minicamp, call it the rookie minicamp because it's mostly rookies and it's really specifically designed for the rookies, but they will be practicing Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The veterans start arriving on Friday. Saturday is their acclimation and testing day, and then obviously Sunday will be the first day on the field for the first open practice. But Wednesday and Thursday are pretty much going to be standard practices. That's what they do. So it'll be very similar. And one of the things Andy Reid kind of explained today is that they will go through the exact same installs that they will do with the veterans when they arrive in their first practice on Sunday and Monday. And Tuesday. So the rookies, what they're going to be doing is they're eventually going to do the exact same thing that they're going to do. It's like a dress rehearsal, but a lot of work out for them. There's going to be probably about 30 odd players here for this camp, give or take. So it means, as Andy Reid said, a lot of short lines. There's only 5 wide receivers eligible to be at this camp. I don't know how many will be here. I think there's 3 tight ends that are eligible. We'll see. I think that all 3 of them are going to be here. We saw Garrett Prince. He's one of those because if you haven't accrued a full season in the NFL, you are considered if you're a first-year player, you are eligible to attend this mini camp. Doesn't mean that you have to. The team usually has a decision based on some of these. They'll say, hey, you don't need to be here for this, or you do need to be here. So there will be a little bit of a leeway there. But like I said, it's going to be about 30 players. It's an opportunity for the quarterbacks to kind of ease themselves into and loosen up their arms a little bit. And there will be some players coming back from injury. One of the ones I thought was most interesting that we saw coming in today was Leo Chenal. Leo was dealing with an injury during off-season workouts. So his being here early is interesting. Normally, players that are eligible for veterans to come here into this camp early, it's because they either ended last season on injured reserve, like Joe Tooney. There's a few others, or they'd had an injury during the offseason or surgery during the offseason. Jaylen Watson's a good example of that. Would be eligible to come here. But Leo, we knew had dealt with a little bit of an injury during OTAs. Wasn't necessarily something that was at a level that would make him questionable for training camp, and not amongst the list that's going to be listed as being on the top list. But I thought it was interesting that he arrived here. But So the next couple of days, Des, yeah, it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. The rookies are practicing. Wednesday and Thursday will be a pretty normal practice. Friday is unusual because the veterans, especially the quarterbacks, don't have to be there. So it's just going to be the rookies. So probably will only be two quarterbacks there. Mahomes and Wentz won't be there. Any of the veterans that are in camp get the day off too. So it'll be a little bit smaller group on Friday, a little bit shorter practice on Friday, but they'll still kind of do the install that would be what the veterans go through on Tuesday. So it truly is a dress rehearsal. So yeah, and these practices are open to the media, so we'll be able to give you some takeaways from them. They're just like the OTA practices, though, since they're not open to the public. There's some things the team can make off record. So can't necessarily report everything that happens there, and there are certain periods you can't shoot video. So there are some restrictions. So you won't hear everything that comes out of the next couple of days, but we will get to talk to some of the rookies after practice. A lot of things going on there. So yeah, it's a busy couple of days, this mini camp. I mean, it's really, to me, it's just part of camp. I mean, I don't consider it anything different. The only thing really different is just the number of players that are there, and in fact, there aren't any fans there. So Jesus, Tooney news. Did get some Joe Tooney news. He is amongst the 5 players that are expected to start the season on either the PUP list or the non-football injury list. That list, if I can remember them all off the top of my head without my notes in front of me, Joe Tooney, Charles Minihue, Jaylen Watson, and probably somebody is going to, have it in the comments for blinking. The other one, Derek Nottie, thank you very much, who also reported today. We got to see him walk into the dorms. Those 4 are going to start the season more likely on the physically unable to perform list. Not a guarantee. You still have, the team still basically has until this weekend to make decisions, because the veterans don't have to report until Friday. They go through their testing and medical exams on Saturday. And so really you don't have to put them on that list until as late as Sunday when you have that first practice. So it's possible that one of the 4 that Andy Reid mentioned to us won't, go on the PUP list. Possible somebody else might, but I would expect that those 4 guys to start. And Tooney, Andy Reid said very similar to what he told us to expect at the end of OTAs during the mandatory minicamp, that he expected that Tooney was going to be close. He appears that he is close. They just want to take it easy. And this is usually a very routine procedural thing with a player who is coming back from a surgery, did not have any off-season workouts. The teams typically do want to start them on the PUP list, because once you practice in training camp, you are no longer eligible for the PUP list. So that's the thing. If the Chiefs want to guard themselves against a setback with anyone, and I think that Derek Nottie and Jaylen Watson fall into this category as well, if you want to ensure that the PUP list remains a possibility because they have a setback of any sort whatsoever, then you need to start them on the list, because that's not an option once they take a snap in a practice. That's over. At that point, the only thing that you can do with them is place them on injured reserve. When they're on the PUP list, they will count against the 90-player roster. So with Tooney, he'll count against the roster. If he indeed starts on the PUP list, which expected he will, we'll probably at some point very early see him start to come out and work on the side. That's usually the process. Players will come down and work in the rehab tent, the medical tent, and do some work with one of the athletic trainers on the side, and then eventually get cleared for practice. So nothing in any of these games was a real surprise. Jaylen Watson was the only one that raised my eyebrows a little bit, because it seemed like he had pretty much put the shoulder surgery behind him during workouts, and then he had another tweak that kind of came up. So it's a little bit of a surprise that he might start on the PUP list. But Tooney, it's certainly, I'm not getting any vibe from Andy Reid or anybody else in the organization that this is unexpected. They're going to take it easy with him, let him acclimate himself slowly. They're going to let some young guys get some snaps in there, so Caliendo can get some work. I wouldn't be surprised if Hunter Norzad got some snaps in there too, just to see what he can do and get him some experience. So in each of these situations with the veterans starting on the PUP list, it is good news. Some guys down the depth chart that are going to get some opportunities, at the very beginning of camp. But like I said, I mean, there's 5 days away until the Chiefs have to make a decision, so things can change between now and then. We'll see what happens. Yeah, Cody, I did see your joke there, and hey, Wi-Fi on college campuses can always be tricky. So I'm right there. Chris, what is the over/under on Travis fights in training camp? Good question. I mean, it will probably depend mostly on how much the young guys think that they can get away with trying to prove themselves by knocking the ball away from Travis. If we get into another, situation where every, rookie defensive backs thinks that they can make their mark by knocking the ball out of Travis's hands, that number could go up pretty high. I am guessing that, one, Travis might get fewer snaps than he usually gets at camp. We'll see if he's in a better mood than maybe he was, last year, the last couple of years at camp. He might be in a better mood. You never know. But no, I mean, that will be what it depends on, and I think that, hey, the young defensive backs might have their hands full trying to keep up with Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy eventually, to worry about trying to knock the ball out of Travis's hands. So that's, I think, the only thing that you would have to worry about with any fights with Travis. Will Price practice like will start week 1? Yeah, I mean, he absolutely. I mean, I would be very surprised if he didn't. For one, I mean, if the Chiefs thought that he was going to be suspended to start the season, and I'm not willing to accept the premise of that, because I still think that suspension is a long ways coming. But even if they did, Jesus, remember back to last year with Charles Omenihu, they practiced like he was going to be the week 1 starter, even though they knew he was going to be out for the first 6 weeks of the season. So if there's a player in that position, they want them to go ahead and get as many of their snaps in now that they can. They want them to prepare just like they're going to be ready for the season, because if they are away for any amount of time, they don't want them to be behind the 8 ball or missing out on anything. So that's Andy Reid's philosophy. Like I said, I'm not accepting the premise that Rashee Rice is going to be suspended starting the season. I think he's going to be available. But either way, the Chiefs will absolutely prepare him as though he is going to be playing this season starting in week 1. Randall, can the Chiefs defense turn a repeat performance of last season? I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest questions about this team and about the training camp. I don't think there's any doubt they've got the talent to do it. It's, a big part of it's just going to be, can you have the same chemistry? Will you have the same production in the secondary without L'Jarius Sneed? Will you still be as hungry with the same guys coming back? And I don't necessarily see that being a problem. I mean, I think this is going to be a motivated group. I mean, I think the carrot is out there for them. So I'm not expecting any setback, but you never know. I mean, injuries can play a role in that, and sometimes luck plays a role in it too. And if there's any area that I think that sometimes luck can play a possible role in how a defense plays, it's how your pressure on the quarterback turns into production, and especially with hits and sacks. 3 years ago, back in the 21 season, I mean, the Chiefs pass rush wasn't very productive. But if you looked at the metrics, if you looked at the numbers about how close they were getting to the quarterback and maybe the hits they were getting on the quarterback, they weren't that bad. And frankly, I mean, their metrics compared fairly favorably to the last 2 years when they had 55 sacks in each of the last seasons, number 2 in the league in sacks. So sometimes it's just luck about, whether you're that split second late to the quarterback or the quarterback gets away from you. Sometimes the same pressure number doesn't turn into the same number of sacks. And that's the one thing that, can be hit and miss. I mean, if the Chiefs, pass rush isn't as good as it was the last 2 years. And that because the 4 is not as good. It could be because the secondary isn't as good as it's been the last 2 years. Things can happen. But that's at least, to me, like one big indicator about this defense is that can it be as good as it's been the last couple of years, is that they've got to get the quarterback down. That's the number one way in the NFL. Sacks and turnovers are how you win on defense. It's certainly how this defense wins. So we'll see what happens. So Zulu. I saw some others answered your question, but yes, Xavier Worthy did show up today. I wasn't sure if he showed up before we were all out there. The Chiefs let us be out in front of the dorm as they were all checking in, and players were starting to report from about 2:15 until 3:30 or so. I wasn't sure if he came in while we were in a press conference with Reed and Mahomes, and there was a couple of players who kind of snuck behind me, and I know that's when the Chiefs put out their video of him coming in. Was shortly after those press conferences, so I wasn't sure if he reported then or earlier in the day before we were out there. But yeah, Xavier Worthy is here. The Chiefs are going to get him to work. Like I said, there's only 5 receivers that can be eligible for this camp, and the mini camp is not the same pace as a normal training camp practice. It'll be slower down because the lines are so short. I mean, there's not a lot of players. You'll be lucky if you've got full squads on both sides and ability to go 11 on 11. Some years Chiefs have not had the ability to go 11 on 11. One year, I remember, I don't believe that they had a running back in mini camp. So Eric Bieniemy was taking, handoffs in the backfield to simulate, the running back being back there and everything, just so that they could kind of at least give the rookie some looks. Cody, who was the snack rookie? If I'm not mistaken, that was Leo Chenal, wasn't it, that came with the ton of snacks and then threw up the next day? Look, I mean, here's the thing. A lot of rookies are going to throw up. It's a question about whether or not we see them. Patrick alluded to Rice's throw up days last year, which makes me wonder if, Rice threw up more times than we saw him on the field. There's going to be some rookies that throw up. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Today was not that hot in St. Joe. It was in the 80s. There were some storms that rolled through this morning. So it was humid. It wasn't as hot. It was steamy. On the bright side, at least I can tell you that it wasn't as hot as some years, because at least twice during training camp, my phone has gotten hot that it's given me the message that it has to cool down before, that it's overheating and it has to cool down before it can work again. Didn't happen today, but not gonna lie, I put a little dicey. It doesn't look like the temperatures are going to be that bad for this mini camp, but it'll probably be humid, and you definitely get down there on the fields where there's very little wind and breeze going through, and it will make it dicey. So, Don, with the big question, because Patrick and Andy today both dropped it, about pads coming on. And Nick will come in here and talk about when the pads come on here pretty soon. I believe, if I remember off the top of my head, I have my math correctly, July 26th should be the day, because you got the acclimation day, and then you got a day where it's just basically a run through. Then you've got, I can't remember, I think you're allowed 3 days in sliders and shells, which would be, if I'm not mistaken, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. The Chiefs are not having a practice on the 25th. But so it should be the 26th, if I'm not mistaken. Slightly outside chances the 27th, but I believe from everything heard and all the rules and everything like that, I believe it is going to be that Friday, July 26th. That'll be the first day in pads. So a couple of days before that, we'll put spiders and shells, but not the full pads until the 26th. So I believe that is going to be the first day. If it's not, I will try to correct it, Don, but that is my understanding. Cody, question for both me and Nick. So I'll have to, if Nick doesn't come in during the question, Cody, make sure to get it for you. But what was your takeaway from Mahomes and Reed giving contradictory answers to Worthy being eased in? Patrick said he's not going to be, but Reed said he is. Cody, I mean, here, I'm going to parse their statements a little bit, and I'm not trying to be defensive for them or anything, but I actually understood what they were both talking about, even though Andy said they were going to ease him in, and Patrick said they weren't. From Andy's standpoint, the coaching standpoint, what he means is that they're just going to back off of him a little bit early on and not give him every snap that he may normally get. I mean, like he would normally get. And that's particularly true during the rookie minicamp when, like I said, there's only 5 receivers. You could very well, like Rasheed last year, and one of the reasons why he was sick on the field, you're going to get situations where you could be playing every single snap because there's just not the numbers. Now they do try and slow the pace down for this rookie mini camp so they can handle that. So they're not going as fast. So, they're still going to get a lot of work, but it's not as quick. It's not like you're all of a sudden going to get 150 snaps because there's nobody here. They'll go a little slower. But I took Andy's as being at least he is going to handle his workload. He's going to handle it so that and probably even at the beginning of camp when the veterans get there, that maybe he's working with 2s a little bit. Maybe he's just mixing in with the 1s and not playing as a starter. Maybe he's kind of just playing at maybe 80% of the workload. We'll see. I mean, that's how they kind of track players now. And it's one of the metrics as far as, determining how they're going to put a player out there and how many snaps they're going to give them and reps they're going to give them on any single day of practice. So I took Andy's comments as being about he's going to handle his workload. He's going to handle his pitch count, if you will. And Mahomes was talking about, hey, I'm not going to take it easy. I mean, I'm going to throw him the ball. If the route and the play calls for him to run a 9 route down the field as fast as he can, he's going to throw the ball to him. If he needs to throw him a Z in over the middle, he's going to throw it to him. I mean, I took it as that way with Patrick. I mean, Pat's not in charge of determining how many snaps that Worthy's going to be out there for. The only thing Patrick can control is where he throws the football. And he made it pretty clear he's not going to be worried about, hey, I'm going to take it easy on Worthy here. I'm not going to throw this ball to him because, he's working too hard, or, I don't want him to get hit here or maybe collision or anything of that nature. He's not going to think twice about that. He's going to treat him like any other player. So I think it's the same answer to a degree. I mean, I think Andy obviously expects the same thing. He was going to expect Worthy for the snaps that he gets, the reps that he gets, to be given 100%. But, hey, Mahomes is out there. He's going to use him. So it's just how they're I think talking about it from they're each of their own individual standpoints. Dez with another question. Once again, proud member. I love you, Dez. Should we be worried a Creed deal is not done? I'm not, because I'm just kind of used to this now, that this is how it's done. I would probably be surprised if any of these deals got done before the beginning of the season. I think you're probably right with talking about Creed, because I think Creed is the easiest one to get done. It's pretty simple. I mean, I think he's the best center in the league now. You know what the best centers in the league make. You know what the top of the center market is. So to me, it's pretty easy. I mean, maybe Creed wants more money than that. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to make $15 million a year. Maybe he wants 16 or 17 or 18. I don't know. Hasn't told me yet. So there can always be a disconnect on what the player wants and what the team is willing to pay. But I do feel like at least that Creed's deal is going to be the easier of the 3 contracts that get done. So you'd like to hope that it gets done earlier. But I'm not worried about any of them, because if it gets done, it gets done, and timing is not going to matter that much. To me, once again, you got several deadlines. The beginning of camp is one deadline. The beginning of the regular season is another deadline. May have another opportunity, between the end of the regular season and the playoffs, where sometimes something gets done. And then obviously you go to March when things can get done. So I don't know that I'm not too concerned. I mean, would the Chiefs feel great if they could get one of these deals done and Creed done? Yeah. But I don't think that there's particularly any concern at this point. So I wouldn't be worried. I know you're going to get frustrated the closer you get to March if you don't have any of these guys signed up, especially these three guys in the rookie deals. But worried? No. I mean, it's the process. It's how it plays out. So it's not ideal, but it's just what we've got, what we're left with, unfortunately. Dr. Ozzy, how do the dorms work at training camp? Anyone having to share rooms, bathrooms, or are they all separated? Yeah, my understanding is that the younger players do have roommates. Trying to remember, because gosh, was Gary Dieter Patrick Mahomes' roommate rookie year? Probably was. And there's no doubt. I mean, there's no seniority in that standpoint. I mean, the seniority is how long you've been on the team gets to be, how high up in the dorm your room gets to be until you get to be on the top floor and you don't have anybody above you making noise. I mean, I think we all know from apartment life and dorm life that's what you got to watch out for. So I know how excited Holmes was when he got enough seniority to be on the top floor and didn't have anybody above him anymore. But the younger guys, they do have roommates. And I don't remember. I mean, you can look it up. I can't remember how many rooms there are in that dormitory. You got to remember that it's not just the players, it's not just the coaches, but everybody who's up here for this organization stays in the same dorm. So, it's like, I think Alan Wright told us last year he had to bring like 200 people up here plus. So, because they have people from obviously like all the athletic trainers, equipment managers are up here. They're interns. They bring a lot of interns in for this. They're up there. Communications, the 65 toss power trap group is all up here. Social media is up here. There's probably a few from other departments. I know marketing comes up here from time to time. Maybe they have some people up here that stay throughout. They've got people who help training camp that stay up here. So, yeah, it's a full group, and probably some of the employees in the other departments probably have roommates too. I haven't heard always how that works out, but I do know that the rookies and younger players, they do have roommates. So, hopefully, I guess this year you just hope that your roommate also plays college football 25 and enjoys the Olympics, because I think that's what these players are going to be doing in their rooms on their free time most of the time, it sounds like. Des, fun question, Matt. Do you think the NFL should adopt the draft lottery system for the teams that don't make the playoffs? I've thought about that, Des, and I'm not sure. I mean, to me, it would really be if it becomes a problem where you get multiple teams tanking in order to get a draft pick. And I mean, I think we've only seen a handful of true examples of teams tanking to get the number one pick or to try to, be in that round. I think a lot of teams that have ended up with, the number one pick just did their own incompetence. I mean, Chiefs, when they had the number one pick in 2013, that was a terrible team. I mean, I don't think I don't believe that group set out to build a terrible team. I think they just happened to be bad team builders and couldn't coach it up. So they earned that number one pick. There's probably a couple of instances where I'd say that, you really have some tanking, and, other sports like the NBA, Major League Baseball, I think you've seen some tanking in those situations where teams purposely try to field the non-competitive team so they can save money, get a higher draft pick, that kind of thing. Problem is, I think the lottery system always really work out. I mean, it's the bad luck of the lottery system that I always seem to find, when a team miraculously seems to get, back-to-back high picks, even though they probably didn't deserve it. Or when a team has been truly, truly terrible and tried to maybe be decent, like the Royals tried to be decent a few times and they were terrible. You don't want to see them punished for that by them getting a worse pick. So I'm okay with the current system, Des, until, it becomes a problem. And I think in the NFL, I think there is enough pressure for teams to be competitive. I mean, it's hard to not be a 500 team in the NFL. I mean, if you're not going to be a 500 team, it's because you've made a bad decision. Maybe your quarterback got hurt. That could happen too. But you made a lot of decisions if you're not a 500 team. It's not that hard. Oh, as they're turning out the lights here. They told me they wouldn't kick me out of the building until 8 o'clock, but I guess they did turn out the lights. Hopefully that means that the I haven't seen the Wi-Fi go off yet, so I'll just be here like a ghost in the dark. But I mean, right now I'm okay with that, Des. I don't think they need it. We'll see if something's changed, but until then, I'm fine with the current system. I think it works. Red Hood Chief, Veach said when he first took over as GM that you signed the guys you want to keep after year 3. Any idea why that hasn't occurred to date? Seems like he's always pushing it to the last minute besides Pat. You know, it is a good question, Red Hood, and I've talked to Brett about it a couple of times in the past. And, you know, and some of it is been that, you know, honestly, with the first few drafts, and let's give Brett credit for his own drafts, you know. So I'm not going to hold him to 17, even though, hey, we give him credit for, you know, putting Pat on the radar, and a lot of people say Pat is his draft pick. It was a John Dorsey draft. So, you know, I'm only going to hold Brett to it for drafts that he part in. So starting with 18. Question is, you know, have you had the players that you wanted to extend? I mean, Chris Jones is probably at least a good example of a player that Chiefs wanted to keep. Was not one of Brett's draft picks. Obviously, that was before he was GM, but he was GM when Chris hit his 3-year mark. But that was a case that Chris didn't want to sign a deal at that point. I mean, after year 3, he wanted to test the market. I mean, he wanted to get through his 4th season and push his value. He didn't want to sign for, you know, potentially under market deal. And the Chiefs at that point, after year 3, maybe were not in a position to offer Chris what they were after the season. I mean, remember, there were still some, you know, maybe some questions about Chris that maybe people around the league and team had. So he goes out and has a great year 4, and then you want to keep him for sure. So that's probably just a matter of sometimes it's what the player wants and what the team wants doesn't match up. Then you get situations where maybe there's just not a player that you want to keep from that draft. I mean, have the Chiefs had a lot? I'm seeing Chiefs Digest After Dark. Nice one, Ozzy. It's, have you had the players that you wanted to re-sign to long-term deals? And, you know, let's just take, I'll go back and look at the 2020 draft, for instance, because that's one that you could at least say, I mean, 2022 would have been their 3rd year in the league, and that's when you could start signing them. So let's take a look at that one real quick and just, you know, go through it. You know, Clyde, did you want to sign Clyde for year 3 to a long-term deal? I don't think that would have happened. I don't think the Chiefs were there at that point. Willie Gay, Chiefs might have considered it, but I know that was not Willie Gay's consideration. I mean, Willie wanted to play out year 4 and wanted to test his value. So I don't think there's anything that the Chiefs could have done to sign him after year 3. Lucas Niang is actually in that spot right now. Even though he was in that 21 class, but the opt-out year. So, you know, you could sign Lucas Niang to a long-term deal. Is that something you want? I mean, it's a backup player at this point. So, you know, I think Niang would probably say he wants to play out his 4th year and maybe take his chances. I mean, if I were in his shoes, that would be my philosophy. Mike Hanna, you know, didn't get a deal done, plays out. I think that the Chiefs would have possibly considered, you know, maybe a deal with Hanna. I'm just sure if maybe the money was there. But the Chiefs had several of those players that, you know, get to year 3, that they don't get an extension done with before they play at year 4. And then they just continue to bring them back on 1-year deals. So they've had a lot in that category. So, you know, that to me, I think I think a lot of it's just bad luck, you know, as far as having the player in the right situation that you want to be able to sign a long-term deal with, that you have a player who wants to sign a long-term deal. And, you know, that just hasn't matched up. I mean, the Chiefs have just not consistently had that. They are going to have that going forward because, you know, starting really, I think, with the 22 draft in particular, and this one that, you know, you're really getting ready to 21 and 22 drafts in particular, you're dealing with multiple targets that the Chiefs want to try and keep. So, you know, I'm still under the assumption that they're going to be able to get a deal done to keep one or two of these guys. I mean, maybe I still don't think a franchise tag makes sense for any of them, but I think that I think the Chiefs are going to get a couple of these deals. We'll see what happens. If Nick were here, I would say your mileage may vary, but I'll go ahead and say it anyway. But I think it's a lot of his circumstance. I mean, it's the same kind of thing about, you know, the conventional wisdom was with Brett Veach was that he doesn't want to put resources to the quarterback position. Well, I mean, a big part of it was just that, you know, they had some drafts where they didn't have, you know, draft picks high enough in the draft. They didn't have first round picks there for a while. So he's had a couple of those drafts. Then it was just a matter of not having the cornerback that he liked at the draft pick that they wanted. They weren't spending money on free agents because those players either were or were not available. I know that the Chiefs were very interested, for instance, in trying to sign Kyle Fuller when he was a free agent the first time. I think they had an excellent chance. Had not ended up staying in Chicago, I think the Chiefs would have signed him. I think that's where he would have ended up, in Kansas City, and then that would have been, I think, totally changed the conversation. Obviously, the conversation's changed now because you draft, you know, Trent McDuffie. That changes it. I mean, you know, so I think you just probably need more time, Red Hood, maybe a larger sample size of players, because I do think that Brett Veach is going to do that, but it's just going to be for the right players. He's not going to sign guys to long-term extensions for the sake of it. It's going to have to be players that they feel like are going to be starters in years 5 and 6 and 7, maybe, and not just role players. So, you know, that's part of what it's going to be too. Brother Rick, super chat. Thank you, Brother Rick. Appreciate that. What's the 40 time for LRZ, Luis Reese-Zammit? I'm trying to remember if I've seen one. I know that Patrick had in interviews that he hit 24 miles an hour on the tracking. Let's see. He did the International Player Pathway Program Pro Day, and his 40-yard time there was a 4.43. So, you know, now that, hey, how much training did he go into it for that? I mean, I sincerely doubt that the training that Luis Reese-Zammit went in for the International Player Pathway Combine, essentially draft day, was similar to what college players here do. So, I mean, I don't think we're probably talking apples, but 4.43 was his time. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just a tad faster than that. I mean, if the sensors have him going at 24, he's definitely faster than that. Now, the sensors are the same sensors that they use on the field. That's obviously without pads, not in a game situation. So it's not, like I said, it's not apples to apples. I would think that if he prepared like a college player in this country does for the Combine at College Pro Day, Rick, I mean, I think he'd be faster than that. I think he'd probably be in the 4.3s. So maybe be faster, maybe get down to the under 4.3. I don't know. I mean, I think he'd be pretty speedy. So, but good question. Nick is in the house, so even though I'm sure he's probably wondering why I'm sitting here in the dark, but I'll wait for him to get the thumbs up, and then we'll bring him in to answer some of your questions. Stumble and Mumble. Do you think if the Chiefs don't have the money to sign Crenshaw at the same time, they wouldn't try to extend either one, as one player might feel slighted? No, I really don't think they would hold that back. I mean, that is going to be one of the tricky things of that to me, because you've got two players that play two different positions, even if they're next to each other, for which the market value is radically different. And that can be a challenge, but also at the same time, I mean, players understand parts of that. Now, hey, does that, and I don't know what Creed wants. I don't know what his agent's going to ask for. Maybe his agent's going to say, hey, wait a minute, you know, Creed's the best center in the league. There's no reason why you shouldn't pay him like the best guard in the league. That could happen. I don't know. But very rarely, I mean, and there can be some situations, but I can't see, especially in that group with those two players in particular, I think they would both have the philosophy of good for you for getting your money. I think that would be the situation for both those guys, and that's the way it is for the majority of players in the league. I think that either one of them would see it as, hey, that guy just signed the deal and took my money. I mean, I think they both get the business of it, that money for both those positions. And I mean, the reality of it is they probably won't sign for the same amount of money because it's two different positions, markets. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I can't see that necessarily happening. I mean, obviously, if a scenario like that were to play out, I mean, the reality of it is that Creed is the weaker market at center, so he would be the guy who probably signs for less. So he be in a situation where he'd be maybe disappointed if Trey signed for more money than he is, maybe. But I also think that Creed's the kind of guy that would be pretty happy for Trey if Trey got paid, especially after everything that he's been through. So with that, bring it in.
Hi,
Nick, how are you, my friend?
Camp greetings, Matt. It's good to see you.
Camp greetings. I can't wait for you to be up here with me.
Well, you only got to wait, less than 24 hours, and I'll be there. Did a lot of running around today, Matt, and I've still got 2 more things to do after we get done here.
Oh, dang! I know I have unfortunately had some things to do myself tonight, so it's not an easy evening for me. But and now I'm sitting here in the dark because they turned the lights out on me.
I know. I saw that. Don't worry. I was listening to it while I was driving back to my house, and I was like, they just turned the lights out on Matt. I was like, oh man,
turned the lights out on me.
We would like to go home. You should go home too, and
that's the way. At least I have the window. So I'm sitting next to the window here in the media workroom. So at least I have that, lighting me a little bit. So and unfortunately, I try to get a better angle with my laptop and the camera, Nick. So I put my laptop on my bag, and in my bag is my little tiny little light that I could put on my laptop. So I can't get it on my bag because my laptop's in the bag.
I see what you're saying, Matt. I do. So what I'm hearing you say is you need me to bring you a desk lamp for this to happen in the future. Although you probably wouldn't be up there that late on a regular basis.
Exactly. I mean, I shouldn't be that late, but never had the lights turned off in this building on me before. I have had the lights turned off on me at Arrowhead in the press box. So, and that's much creepy. At least it's daylight here.
Matt, Cody Ashmore is demanding. He's not demanding. He's just wanting to know if you'll bring up his question from earlier. And you did. It's like you saw it.
I knew. I knew what I promised Cody, so I was going to bring it up.
Crushed it.
So there you go. What do you think, Nick? I mean, what? I'm assuming you heard the press conferences today. So
no, of course. I listened to
answers.
Yeah, I listened to both of them. I mean, I don't take anything from it. Like, I mean, as a player like Mahomes, he's going to be competitive. He's going to have a competitive mindset, and he's going to, as a leader of that team, that's his job to say along the lines of like, yeah, no, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. So I mean, like, as Mahomes is a leader. That's what he's supposed to say, and to get Worthy in that mentality. And it's the coach's job to say, we're going to do this and this and not put certain expectations on them. So nobody's wrong in this matter. It's just 2 different things that each person's having to deliver. And at the end of the day, they're both going to reach the point where, like, Pat's trying to show them, hey, this is the type of culture we have. This is the mindset we have as players. And so that's why that's going to be said, or that's why that's going to happen. And Andy, on the other hand, is going to be the coach of it, and he'll determine what snaps he does or doesn't take. So, I mean, I'm not worried about it because, like, they're going to do what's best for Worthy collectively.
I cannot disagree with any of that. In case
Matt, did you have a visitor?
I did not have a visitor,
okay.
But I was going to where was Don's suggestion? I had it there. Yes, it could be motion censored. I think you're right, Don. So you saw me. I'm sure I threw my headphone case.
Yeah, I saw. Yes.
Trying to see if I could set off the sensor. So what I probably should just do is bring up the next question, let you answer it, Nick, and I'm going to go see if I can't, turn on the light myself because I think Don's on something.
Go for it, Matt. And I do think Don probably is right now that I think about it.
I think he's on to something. So, Dr. Ozzy asking, any concern on your part with Watson being on the PUP list? The rest seemed to be pretty foreseeable. That was the only one that surprised me a little bit, Nick, but maybe I shouldn't have been surprised. He was not on the field. He wasn't practicing at the end of OTA. So this certainly seems to fit into the precautionary move that you make for a player that you just don't want him to go back to practice if there's any chance of a setback, and you want to keep the PUP list option open, right?
I mean, right now, Matt, you go ahead and do what you need to. You under promise and you over deliver right now. So I mean, like right now, you just say, well, hey, we're gonna put him on, potentially on the PUP list, and then so you do that, and then on the other aspect of it, I see Matt down there right now. You're gonna pop back in.
Well, to Don's credit, I stood up and the light turned on. But when I stood up, I hit the table behind me that then knocked over a chair. So don't know if you all heard that, but
no, we did not. We did not hear anything. So you're good. But I mean, like, that's where you say the guys are going to be on PUP. You just put that out there. And then if they don't have to be, that's great. But you kind of use that option if you need it for another week or two. So you got to remember, everybody's been gone for a handful of weeks now. So, I mean, you're just going to kind of see where everybody's at whenever they arrive. And like, I'm not, if it's 3 weeks into camp and it's middle of August and, and that's the situation, sure. But I mean, like right now, you're not even in the infancy stage, because Sunday isn't, the first practice isn't until Sunday.
And a couple of things I hammer out here real quick. Des, yes, media is allowed on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we get to talk to some of the rookies after practice. It is a closed practice, so there's limits on what we can report, but media will be out there. And then Cody, breaking a little news for me, because I've been 100% focused on Chiefs training camp today. Did not see that Quinn Miners with the 4-year $80 million deal. That's photocopy that if you're lucky for Trey Smith. I mean, if you handed that deal to Trey today, Nick, I don't know if he would sign it, because if I'm his agent, I might think there's more money in the offseason. But hard to say.
Yeah, if you're Trey Smith's agent right now, you're doing everything you can to get him to market. Like, I mean, that's really,
and honestly, the 4-year $80 million part is not the part that would worry me if I'm the Chiefs or be any concern. It's the $45 million guaranteed, because that tells me that deal is essentially 2 years, $2.5 million per. And that means that you're not trying to pay Trey Smith $40 or $20 million a year. You're probably going to have to pay him $22.5 million a year. So not getting any easier to try and keep Trey Smith. That market for him is just going to be ridiculous. A whole lot of difference from what you did, Nick. I mean, with Watson, I mean, to me, it's a procedural thing, just to keep your options open. Doesn't seem like the Chiefs are terribly concerned with that injury, so we'll see. And with all these guys, once again, I mean, you really don't. If you're the Chiefs, you don't have to make that designation truly until July 21st. So there's plenty of time, and the pads don't come on for another 10 days from now. So, to me, it's beginning of camp. It's not a huge concern, especially for veterans. They can come in and pretty much start winding themselves up at any time. Red Hood Chief, would you say that Spence and team view McDuffie and Karlaftis as a lock for second contracts, or does FAU lack of financial investment in the cornerback market put it into the question? Interesting what you think of it, because we looked ahead a little bit towards this in the 41 is the Mike podcast a couple of weeks ago. We probably got a little time pressed for talking about the future as much as we wanted to, but I mean, if you're Brett Beach, you want to get long-term deals done with both those guys, don't you?
I think you want to see where both of them are at this year, and if they take the next step. So with Karlaftis, can he be that game changer if he does get one-on-one opportunities that can take advantage of Chris Jones getting double teams? And if he can do that and have a 12, 13, 14, 15 sack season type thing, then he's going to be in a good position to kind of demand a new contract. He took the step he needed to from year 1 to year 2. Now he's going to take that next step with McDuffie. You want to see him establish himself as one of the best corners in the league this year and kind of can take on that number 1 role because his agent's going to want number 1 money. So if that's going to be happening, he's going to have to be able to showcase that. So we'll see on those 2 fronts whenever January rolls around of next year. But I think more than anything else, the key in Steve Spagnuolo, especially in 4-3 defenses, is your defensive tackles, your 1 and your 3 tech. What you do with that, how you push that pocket backwards. I think that has a lot more to do than what your defensive ends do. Doesn't mean if you get an elite defensive end, you don't pay him. It just means that you're moving the money in another spot from maybe where you would have it inside with the 2 defensive tackles. Right now, the Chiefs have a dominant guy in Chris Jones. Who's the other guy along the defensive line? That's for anybody on that defensive line to establish this year that they deserve to make in that $20 million range or even more, whether that's Charles Omenihu, whether that's Inyudika Uzama, whether that's Karlaftis. Each one of them gets to have the opportunity to make that case. So, I mean, above all else, I think like long term, you're wanting to find a 3 behind Chris or you're wanting to find a 1 tech. And the defensive tackle spots, I think, is where the league is slowly going to start really investing their money unless there's a true blue chip like a Myles Garrett type of guy, just because you want to make quarterbacks uncomfortable. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
And, you know, once again, I mean, it brings us to where the markets are and everything. And, I mean, let's face it, the edge rusher market is much more difficult to navigate the corner market. I mean, it's kind of a, you know, similar conversation we were having maybe about, you know, Chris Jones and L'Jarius Sneed and trying to get deals done with both of those guys. I mean, hey, getting something done with George Karlaftis, if he has a good year this year, I mean, he's going to be in a position to ask for a lot of money. I mean, if he has a double-digit sack season this year, you start looking around at what the free agent class is going to look like when he could hit the market, which, you know, those guys got the 5th-year option, so you could push that back. And obviously you've got a franchise tag that you could use in both those positions. But, you know, the corner market has not gone crazy yet. I mean, you could still get, you know, maybe a top-of-the-market corner deal. You're always going to get it cheaper than an edge rusher. So that's just one aspect of it. So maybe that favors the McDuffie edge of the question. But I mean, yeah, I mean, both these players and continue to progress the way they are. If they both have, you know, I would say very good years this year, then yeah, I mean, I think you would want to pay them both. And once again, it comes back to the earlier you get a deal done, the cheaper it is. If you wait on either one of these players, much less after the, you know, till you have to pick up the 5th-year option, much less till you have to franchise tag them in a 6th year. I mean, after year 3, they're both going to be infinitely cheaper than they would be 3 years later, which is what you're facing if you don't get an extension done with both of them or either one of them.
And the thing I'll tack on there is, like you said, if they do exercise the 5th-year option, that becomes their floor. Like that's what you have to, at minimum, probably pay them for a new contract extension.
That is correct. So James asking about Kadarius Toney. Kadarius Toney doesn't have to report yet. So technically, I don't think there's even anything on Kadarius Toney that would make him eligible for this. I mean, you can show up for this if you're injured, but I don't think that Toney has anything that would qualify him for it. So I was even surprised to see Leo Chenal showing up here early. I didn't think that he would have qualified, but maybe there's something that we don't fully know about. I mean, I know it was dinged a little bit at the end of the mini camp and during OTAs. So maybe there's something that we just haven't been told about Leo's situation. But, yeah, you have to have either ended last year on injured reserve or have a off-season surgery or injury that's new of some sort. So there would be no Kadarius Toney here. Derek, how much more, if any, do you see Pacheco part of the offense this season? I mean, is Pacheco to you, Nick, still a growing and emerging player, or is he developed and he is what he is?
I think right now there's 2 parts of his game that are really going to kind of determine where he goes from here in his career. Does he still continue to be that battering ram type of running back who either has the counter to his game or just takes people head on and runs as hard as he can and wears himself down over time like he's done before and already had the surgery after the first year? Is that what he does? Or is he a guy that can find a way to create more lateral quickness and be able to maintain the speed that he can from a straight line perspective? Because that was always my frustration in terms of his college tape was straight line is fine, but lateral, it just, there's the teams can stretch him out to the sideline and really kind of take away what makes him what his lane is as a running back. So can he improve that lateral speed? And then what can he do out of the backfield as a pass catcher in screen game or, catching out in the flats, when it involves lateral speed to get to that point, all those things. That is the part of his game that it can help him make money on the open market here in a couple of years, whether it's with the Chiefs or somebody else. But right now, I think you've got certain plays that he's good with, certain plays that he can do. You're not going to confuse him with Damian Williams in a lot of ways and what he was or what Jamal Charles was. It's just Pacheco's got his style, but he is important to this offense. And until you know what the rest of that running back room is going to be, his importance you need to keep protected.
Yeah, I mean, to me, obviously the one area I think that you could end up seeing him still develop is as a every down running back and somebody that you do put out there more on third down situation. I mean, he's always been, I think, a work in progress as a blocker. He hasn't been bad. I mean, he's definitely, he has the one thing that you have to have more than anything else as a blocking running back.
All things Chiefs, right?
If you don't have the want to, that is okay. If you don't have the want to, that's the first thing is gone. You're never going to be a good blocking running back. You don't want to block anybody. He does want to block people, so I give him credit for that. But is he in the category of like a Jerick McKinnon was when Jerick was at his peak? No, I mean he's got some more work to do there. So that's why I just see that if he can take that next step to being an every down running back, I mean that might be the only thing really keeping him from maybe being a 1,000-yard guy. Because he can do a lot of things. Is he the ideal back for this system? Maybe not. I mean, obviously, you look at the numbers, you'd say a guy like Kareem Hunt is the ideal back for this system and this offense. But I still think that, hey, there's plenty that Pacheco can do. I mean, and I'll be interested to see what happens with him, because this is a guy that's going to be getting into that year 3 where if you want to extend him, now would be the time. And the question is going to be, is the Chiefs, what's your philosophy on running backs? Do you try to sign in a guy like Isaiah that might not be a high-end, top-of-the-market running back that maybe you can try more affordably, or do you just prepare to move on to the next guy because it's the running back room and you can't pay everybody, and you just can't pay running backs, period? I don't know. Your mileage may vary, Nick. I said it before you got here.
There it is. There it is. I was just waiting for it. Yeah.
I think we've gotten through all the questions that we have so far. So if anybody does have last call, if you've got some questions here. I probably should have clarified a little bit. Tony doesn't have to be here, doesn't have to report until Friday with the veterans, and Saturday obviously is their acclimation and testing day before the first day on Sunday for the full team workout practice. Looking to see if there's any other comments or questions that I maybe missed. So there's an interesting point from Des. Nick, McGee will probably get more than Jair Alexander. I have to look at what Alexander got. I don't know if you remember off the top of your head.
No, I don't. That is not. It's not on my radar right now, Matt.
Wasn't on my radar yet, but every once in a while, you have our sometimes the most amazing knowledge on the top of your head. 4 years, 84.
Yeah, $30 million signing bonus. Yeah. $21 million per year, 30 guaranteed.
Give it another year, yeah. I mean, and if he has another all-pro year, yeah, McDuffie will probably get a little more than that. I think I'd pay him, but
this is a year for him to prove that he deserves that payment. And here's the other thing people need to keep in mind is right now, in my opinion, you have a security blanket in Dave Merritt, who can develop corner after corner and safety after safety. So like you don't necessarily feel like you really have to invest insanely financially in that position because you have a good system where you have the guys in for 4 years, they learn the game, and then if you need to either trade them or if you need to let them walk in free agency, you can potentially do that. And the Chiefs have done that before, so it just comes down to, in all honesty, how long do you have Dave Merritt? Because after you don't have Dave Merritt to develop them,
I'm just going to stop you right there, Nick, because you're never going to not have Dave Merritt. You cannot let.
I mean, you have to do everything you can.
He's a Kansas City treasure.
He is, and I know we're both big fans of him, but he is going to be a defensive coordinator sooner or later, whether that's going to be in Kansas City or somewhere else, just because he has that level of talent. So, like, I'm just saying, like, it's easier to be able to walk away from guys right now. You were comfortable, in my opinion, walking away from L'Jarius Sneed because Dave Merritt's still the coach. Like, you're like, hey, this guy, his track record, it's been pretty good. It's helped them to 3 Super Bowls. So, and as you've mentioned before with the golden retriever analogy, like that's a part of that. So, yeah, it is for that and all that aspect of it. That'll determine how many guys you have to pay over time, and we'll see what happens down the road here.
I did run into Dave Merritt today as reporting for camp and walking into the dorms, and someone asked him how many training camps has this one for him, and a lot of times even the coaches know exactly how many training camps, and Dave was just like, a lot. It's a lot. It's like I can't keep track, but I tell you what, that dude, the smile on his face and everything, you could tell he's excited for training camp. Some coaches aren't. I mean, some coaches have been around the block long enough that it's just like training camp is like, let's get this over with. Let's get it done. Let's get back home. Dave Merritt looked like he was getting ready to have some fun. So, Brother Rick, we talked this before you got here, Nick, about Luis Rees-Zammett's 40 time. He did run the 40 at the International Pathway Player Program combine type thing, and 4.43. I mean, I doubt that he went through the same kind of training that players over here go through for going through the combine and for the 40 times. So I wouldn't be surprised if he could run faster than that.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say for you. According to the bio for Dave Merritt, this is his 28th season in the NFL.
There you go.
As a player and coach.
So he's correct. That's a lot of training camps.
Yeah. So for Brother Rick out there, hi Brother Rick. Good to see you again. I mean, look, here's the thing I got about 40 times. Matt knows this, and like this is one of those aspects of it. A 40 time just tells me how fast you can go in a straight line. Like that's, so I mean, that's fine if you get the top end speed, but there's not many times in the NFL where you get to run in a straight line for 40 straight yards. So what do you do when a defender's coming? What can you maintain that speed when you have to widen? Can you maintain that speed when you have to stop, start, or you have to juke, or how quickly can you get back to that speed? And like, if you do have to change directions, how long does it take you to get back to that top end speed? Just Tyreek Hill stop start when he was there in Kansas City is one of the fastest things I'd ever seen, and that's what made him so special. For Jamal Charles, the way Jamal could lean to his left or his right and keep his body control and then still be able to maintain that level of speed and then have that burst right off of it. Jamal and Tyreek were two of the best I've ever seen in terms of being able to combine that together. And you could probably compare their 40 times with others, and it's going to be in the ballpark, but it may not be elite of the elite. It may not be Worthy running a straight 40 time. That's the fastest in combine history. So a 40 time, that's fine, but I'll determine the speed by what you can do when you change direction on coach's film. And I don't need a stop-start timer on that. I'm just like, that's fast. That's special right there.
And this is why I'm probably not going to put a ton of stock into his numbers from that pro day in the international program, because I mean it was in January and it was pretty early in his progress for all of this. And like I said, I mean I sincerely doubt that he did a ton of football specific training or drill specific training, because the only other measurements that I have for him are vertical jump and broad jump. His vertical jump was 29 and broad jump was 9'7". That vertical jump sounds like he just out there, like I don't know, probably just got out of a cab and took a jump and wasn't even in sweats. 29 is pretty bad for an NFL athlete, and surprising because I think his numbers would be a whole lot better than that. So I doubt he did any preparation for whatsoever. So, which tells me that I'm pretty sure that his numbers across the board, if he did them right now, would be better than all three of those. So, and then I mean, again, you to your point, when was the last time that you had a requirement for a player to broad jump 9 feet 7 inches in a game? Doesn't happen.
Well, and what the vertical tells you, and what the, like you said, the broad jump, that does kind of tell your explosiveness and what you have in your quads and that aspect of it. So I mean, it gives you a piece of it, but like you said, it's just a piece of what you can compare to other guys in the league. Like, that's all those numbers all ever are. But in terms of like, hey, in this moment when the shoulder pads are on and this guy can run exactly a 4.22, well, that guy may be hurt a little bit. And so just like what's making the college football 25 game so popular is that what they've done in an innovative way is some players' ratings in the game are going down based on injuries they may have, but they're still playing through. And that's kind of in the real world too. And that's what kind of makes that cool for the college football game. That's why people are so amped up about us, because it's getting eerily close to what actually happens in the real world, to where a guy may be dinged up and they may not have that, that 4.22. It might be 4.28, might be 4.32 if you want an exact number, because we love numbers and we love percentages. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, that's, we'll see here in a couple of weeks, man.
Tom started the conversation in the comments about the Ring of Honor and Eric Berry. I mean, we are entering an era, Nick, where, I mean, there's actually going to be some debates and questions about the Chiefs Ring of Honor, because there's a backlog already. Mm-hmm. Some guys who retired in the last 5 years, they're going to be eligible for this, and now that the Chiefs have a Super Bowl run going on, there's going to be more guys added to the list, I think, almost every season. I mean, it's got to happen sooner than later, right?
I mean, when you and I went over it a while back, because we do get this question a handful of times, people were asking about Justin Houston. People are asking about Eric Berry. People are asking about Derek Johnson. Tamba Ali finally, is in because of his contributions from 2006 until the Andy Reid era. So you got to remember, Tamba's a part of Herm Edwards, Todd Haley, Romeo Crennel, and Andy Reid. Like, he's got to see 4 of 13 coaches in in the Chiefs franchise at that point. If I'm correct on that, because Tamba wasn't there when Romeo was there. But like, Derek Johnson, to me, he's the leading tackler, and Derek was with the Chiefs for so long. He was there past it with the Ramil era, until finally both Achilles. After that, finally kind of his change of direction was gone at that point, and then he tried to see if he could play for the Raiders, and then it didn't work out, and he was cooked at that point, because the second one that just derailed what was left of him athletically. But Derek held on for so long, one of the best inside linebackers the Chiefs ever had, and behind him was Gary Spaney, second in tackles all time. And I believe Gary Spaney, from what I saw, like, he just from some of his family's Instagram or some of the social media stuff, that Spaney just retired from the Chiefs organization, because he'd played and worked for the Chiefs organization for, I want to say, almost 40 years, if I remember correctly. So I mean, like, and Spaney's a legend, and Derek broke his tackle record. So I mean, for me, like, Derek and Jamal, those are kind of 2 of the next ones on the list for me personally, in terms of what they had impact wise for the Chiefs franchise. And then after that, you can kind of debate about Eric Berry, but I think part of Eric's career got cut short with his cancer battle and what the chemotherapy kind of did to his body. I mean, it helped him in some ways, but in other ways, I mean, that I know you could tell the toll that it kind of took on him. and just kind of the perspective Eric came back with in the locker room, because I know Torres and I would talk about that, just like how he had just a different view on life in a good way because of what he went through and what he battled. And I think Eric just kind of saw there was more. The impression I got from talking to him from various points in the locker room or just saying hi to him is he didn't have the same standoffish stuff that he used to with us early on in his career. But like he was just a guy that was just more appreciative of life and just kind of soaked in the moments a lot more and appreciated where he was at and what he was doing more so than than having not gone through that. So in some way, I think they gave him a new lease on life, just kind of from the impressions I got.
Yeah, I mean, I think you put it in a really good way for me, because I think that's the way that I think is the best way to explain why Eric Berry might not go into the Chiefs Hall of Fame as early as and quickly as some people expect, because I think he's going to go in when he's ready to go in. I'm not sure that it's the most important thing in the world to him. I mean, I think it's one of those. It's got to be when he's ready. Maybe just not only accept it or to come back and be a part of it and everything. And you're right. I mean, he, at least in the last few years when I got to cover him, I did not get to cover him, before cancer. I mean, I only covered his last few years, but you could always tell that he thought differently than a lot of other NFL players about things, and his mindset was in a different place. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, absolutely, you go through something life-changing like that, I think it does change you, and it changes your priorities, and it changes how you think about things. And so I never got the sense from him that accolades and individual honors, anything of this nature, were first and foremost on his mind. So I think that's how I think the answer is for him. I think it's when he's ready, he'll call up the Chiefs and say, "Hey, I think I'm ready now." I mean, they may ask him every single year and say, "Eric, are you ready to go in the Hall of Fame or go in the Ring of Honor?" Maybe the first time they ask him, he'll say yes. I don't know. We'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a while. But if it is, I think it's just because he's just waiting for it to be the right time for him. And there's obviously others: Alex Smith, Derek Johnson, Justin Houston will eventually be in that conversation once he finally retires. And then we're going to have the debates about how long you have to be a Chief before you can go in the Ring of Honor. Because I think it's 4 years, but there's going to have to be the Tyrann Mathieu conversation. So,
keywords conversation.
Cody, will Gary Dieter help as the coaching intern for the wide receiver camp? I know he was helping out during the offseason. I think there's a possibility he was going to be helping out during camp. It was mostly just if he needed to get it out of the house and get away from the kids. So if he needs a break from daddy sitting, I think you're going to see Gary Dieter at camp helping out with as a coaching intern. But I say that with a great deal of love and respect for Gary Dieter. So, Julia Gulia, when is the first day of full speed contact? And when we know what we got, I think, and I know Zulu answered that because we talked about it earlier. July 26th is the date, as I understand it. So that's 10 days away, Nick. We're almost there.
Yeah, no, it's still a little bit. I mean, I know people are amped up right now, and I totally get that. But yeah, it's still a little bit of time right now until we get to that point. So,
yep. So that's when you'll get to see Remigio and everybody else in pads and see what you got. Mango, do you think the team has an incline that LRZ is making the team, or is the media team just over promoting him? I mean, we talked about this, Nick, and that sometimes the marketing side of the equation sometimes doesn't do some players favors by maybe over promoting them. I don't think it's the case with Luis Rees-Zammit. I mean, I think he's fairly legit, but let's be real. I mean, is he a starting running back in the NFL? No. Is he a starting wide receiver in the NFL? No. Could he be a chess piece that you put in specific situations that you coach in year one for specific possibilities, specific plays, specific role, like an H-back type role, something of that nature, and a special teams player? Yes, and he is prepared for that. So, it's just, to me, it's, do the Chiefs need that? Do the Chiefs need a guy who can play on special teams, maybe be a kick returner, probably play coverage teams too? Got a lot of speed. Appears to be a pretty tough guy. We'll figure out when the pads come on, what he can do when he tries to tackle somebody. And be somebody that maybe you do include for half dozen plays on offense, and some specifically designed things for him. But he's so good at football that, to me, I mean, it's unrealistic to be thinking of him as an every down player, because that would just be crazy. He's not ready for that. And I think he would even tell you he's not ready for that. So its question is, do the Chiefs need that kind of player? I mean, I think they can use that kind of player. If he can play when the pads come.
When the pads come on. That's what we've been talking about. It's been the buzzword in the comment section. It's been the buzzword here. I'm starting to hear it more and more on other spots and other places, Matt. People are picking it up. People are liking it. Maybe
Andy and Patrick both dropped today.
Yeah, they did. Tom Melvin. I would love to believe Andy and Patrick listen to the podcast, or maybe their people listen to the podcast. That would be fantastic. Love it if they did. Exactly, Julia Gulia. But people are going to get confused about that someday. Like, what does Upco mean? But then that's a great chance to tell the story. So 50-50 on that. But I do want to get a hat and t-shirt made, even if it's just for myself. But anyways, getting back to LRZ, and we'll try to sift through this because I know you got to go somewhere and I got to go somewhere pretty quick. Because it's still, that flight's still coming in at that time, right?
I'm surprised I haven't been kicked out of the room yet. So
okay, all right. Well, we'll wrap it up here real quick. With LRZ, I'm not speaking for the media team on that. I'm just telling you, you do notice a difference whenever his name is in a headline, when his name is being tweeted out. You see a significant jump in either the engagement or a video or something of that nature that involves him. So, and I got a feeling there's a lot of people overseas that are rooting for him to have a very successful run. Just like, I'm just going to say it right now, what I'm surprised about, and Matt, you may correct me on this, I'm really surprised there isn't a jersey yet that has Swift on the back of it that has the number 13 or 89. I'm just saying, I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet, because you and I both know that'll go to the top of the sales if that ended up happening down the road here. That's all I'm saying on that front. But I'm just saying, there's certain people like Kelsey, you and I both know Travis Kelce. You just put his name out there right now, and people who aren't Chiefs fans or even care about football, he is going to draw attention in the search engines and in anything that you have on YouTube, Google, whatever, like that. Travis Kelce, boom, something's going to attach to it. For all you know, you and I may have Travis Kelce walking down the hill here in a couple of days, Entertainment Tonight or Access Hollywood, or Variety or TMZ or whatever, wants to use that video for segment just to him, hey, Travis Kelce's back at training camp. And just saying, like, there's a certain people that just draw people's attention and interest right now. And I think Reece Zaman is becoming one of those guys. And if he's able to do well on the football field and translate everything over and be able to make a spot on the 53-man roster, then that stock is going to soar pretty quickly. But the pads are not on yet, so we will see.
Indeed, we will. I was just looking.
Matt was just looking. I'm in
Chiefs
suspense
jersey
right now. And he's back.
There we go. Did I disappear?
You did. You were physically, like, I felt your spirit, but I couldn't hear the words.
I was over at NFL Shop seeing if I could actually make a Swift jersey with an 89, or it was going to block me. But apparently, you can make it yourself and order it. So. Oh,
you can do that? Because I can't make a jersey with my name on the back of it. It denied me multiple times.
Well, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I know. It's a tough break, It made me sad in my head and my heart. But you know what? They didn't. They just basically said, we don't want your money with a Super Bowl patch.
We're definitely gonna have to work on the upcode design. I need to get that. I need to get that rolling, Nick. So.
Mm-hmm. It's all right. I know a place.
Clinton Scott, super chat. Thank you very much, Clinton. Appreciate that. Grade the defensive group of either George Karlaftis or Dana injured. I mean, I'd have some fears if either one of those guys hurt, because right now, I mean, with Charles Omenihu out, Felix is your number 3 defensive end, right? Pretty clearly.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll do a power rankings, and I'll just tell you right now, Karlaftis is your number 1 defensive end, and then behind him is going to Mike Dan is your most developed, but I don't, I see him as more of he moves all over to defensive line and becomes that guy who can help push as a 1 or 3 tech in pass rushing situations. So I don't necessarily classify him as a defensive end all the time. So, but technically he'd be your number 2 right now. When Charles Omenihu comes back, and if he's healthy, he jumps up to your number 1 spot, potentially, depending on where Karlaftis is at. And they can be 1A, 1B. Then Felix right now is going to be probably your 4th guy. And it's just a matter of whenever he can hold up against the run. And when he can hold up against the run, he's going to get a lot more snaps, and he will be able to see the field a lot more. And then we'll just be talking about how impressed are you with how he's developed this year, hopefully, here in the next handful of weeks/months.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I still have some concerns about the depth at defensive end, simply because, I mean, you don't for certain know when Charles Omenihu was coming back. I mean, you've got, I think, a very optimistic timeline now because his recovery seems to be going pretty well, but certainly don't expect to have him at the beginning of the season. So starting out, not going to have him, which means that, right now you're really looking at probably Malik Herring having some significant playing time early in the season for this team. And if you suffer an injury, I mean, now you're starting to bring into the conversation, wait a minute, is Truman Jones going to be giving you some heavy snaps? I mean, or do you do something more dramatic? I mean, are you moving some guys around? I mean, I know, hey, do you cross-train Neil Farrell or somebody like this to be able to play on the outside? I mean, do you have to do something like that? Or are you looking out there the free agent market? I mean, I will say that's the only place that I would say that if I were looking for a veteran free agent and I'm the Chiefs, I would still be considering edge. I mean, I'm not certain that the player is really out there that would be a great fit because almost everybody has a home, but there might be a guy or two that I would call just because, I mean, I think getting challenged. So, and that's why, I'll go back to the question about can this defense back up what it did the last couple of years, and specifically last year? Well, part of it is you need to get a bunch of sacks of the quarterback again, like you have the last couple of years. And you're going to need Chris Jones and George Karlaftis and Mike Dana, probably Felix, and some other people step up. I mean, you're going to get the 50, 55 sacks. You need help from a lot of different people. So I do. I mean, if that's the one area that I just don't feel like that the Chiefs can sustain a lot of injuries. I mean, not only do they need to get some people back like a Omenihu, they just need. That's the one area that an injury could really hurt them. So, Dez, think we can have a Dante Hall impact on special teams with the new rule. What do you think, Nick? Because I'm curious about this. I mean, I think that Worthy is going to have a role on return, sure, but I'm wondering if they're just concerned that he's a little too small to expose on kick returns. Because I mean, Dave Todway's been talking. Sounds like he wants maybe a thicker, bigger body returning kicks this year.
Yeah, I mean, with somebody of Worthy's size, like you said, I'm not putting him in that position right now if I'm in Dave Tobe's shoes. Like right now, he needs to learn the offense. He needs to learn behind Hollywood Brown. He needs to work on getting on the same page with Patrick Mahomes and just focus on that. Get your head to not be spinning on that front. Then you can worry about what special teams down the road right now. And plus, your 4th, 5th, and 6th wide receiver, depending on how many you keep, those are really who you want working in that potential spot as a returner. And then you're going to see what you're going to do at running back and what they could potentially be. And if there's any corners you want to potentially use in that regard as well. So, I mean, I get it and everything. And I'm not saying in a specific situation you maybe don't do that, but there's McCole Hardman, Kadarius Toney. You're going to see what Remigio can potentially do. Like those are the three wide receivers, and if they want to try Sky Moore again and see if he's past the fumbling part of his career like he was his rookie year, then you can try him out there. Those are the guys that are trying to push for roster spots, and that's where the justification comes in for them on special teams is kick and punt returners. Worthy right now, you want him to learn as much as possible from Marquise Brown and potentially be able to replace Marquise Brown if you don't sign him long-term after this year. So anything you do, in my book, with Worthy, you're looking towards him learning what he has to from Brown for now and the future, because everybody that asks about the Rice situation potentially, you're going to need Worthy to be up to speed be as close to a number one, number two wide receiver as he can be next year, just in case you don't have Rice, depending on how everything goes.
Yeah, I'll be intrigued. I mean, we'll see, because we just didn't get a chance to see this team practice with Worthy healthy to see if he is in consideration for that. But I mean, with the way that Dave Toub talked about it, and especially about, that maybe a running back would be a better fit for that return, and that, we saw a lot of Luis Rees-Zammit, who is a big player. I mean, he 30 pounds on Xavier Worthy. So him returning kicks certainly fits in more with what Dave Toub was saying. Nico Remigio doesn't, but at the same time, Nico is a lot bigger and thicker than he was last year. I'll be really interested to see just what his weight change has been from last year to this year, because he certainly has worked on his body a lot. I mean, you're looking at not only just him on the field during OTAs, but in some of his social media photo videos that he's put out there. I mean, he looks totally different. So I'll be interested to see it. If Nico Remigio now is like 195, 200, that's a different category than, 175 like Xavier Worthy will probably play at this year. That's totally different. So that's one of the things we're going to figure out here in the next couple of weeks, Nick. We're going to get to see these guys in action. We're going to get to talk to them and find a few different things. I think we got one more question Kathy just weighed in with, and we'll wrap it up for tonight, since we do have to cut a little bit short. But Kathy, the time delay in kicking game, a big difference to you guys, changing everything. And I assume, Kathy, you're talking about like the change as far as how quickly the players can move and responding to the, as far as having, basically nobody can move until the receiver catches the football. That is going to be tricky, isn't it, Nick?
I mean, like we've talked about multiple weeks on either the podcast or Q&A at this point, is the fact that, like, I mean, for guys, it's going to be bigger for them from blocking in terms of how does anybody false start? Does anybody jump too quickly, and try to get an advantage on accident, that they're jittery and they have something like that happen? Is there going to be more holding because of the guys trying to get a good grip on somebody for a block, or is there going to be mistakes in coverage where there's a crease for a returner to get there? The kicks aren't going to be as high. Kicks aren't, they're going to be a lot more line drive. They're going to be a lot more squib type style kicks and everything. So I just don't, for all that combined, I mean, you're going to see a different style kick. You're going to see some growing pains and everything. But by week 8 or 9, you're going to know, everybody's going to be comfortable with it at that point for the most part. And anything that's exciting that was going to happen will have happened at that point with that play, and the league will be adjusted, and then we'll see how long it stays exciting until it just turns into another play at that point.
Yeah, I mean, at some point we are going to see a lot of touchbacks. I mean, there's going to be certain situations where you're going to see it, and who knows? I mean, maybe it's going to be such an explosive play that maybe teams are going to go to touchback sooner than we think. The thing that I do wonder about just being too much of a benefit to the coverage team is going to be, how does the kick team, handle, especially on the road, but how do you handle watching for when you can move? Because in theory, you may have to have your head turned back to the return man to see when the returner touches the football, and now you can move. That's second. I mean, the coverage team doesn't have to turn. They'll be seeing it directly down the field. I mean, they can see when they can move. You're going to be facing the other way potentially when you see that you can turn. Now you've got to turn and run. I mean, that is going to be a split-second difference. I mean, and split seconds in the NFL can be an eternity. So I'm going to see how teams handle that. I mean, I don't know how easy it would be to have one player, watching and then signaling, or how you go about it, or you watch the sideline and the sideline gives you a signal. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, I think that would be tricky. I mean, there's a lot of parts to this that are going to be interesting for teams to figure out what to do. So we will see what happens. So do have to cut it short tonight, everybody. I apologize for that. You obviously go at the whole thing. We did get 93 minutes in tonight, so you can check it out. Or excuse me, 90. No, I take it back. 89. I can't tonight, Nick. So
you wait another 30 seconds, you'll be at 90 even. You're good.
It'll be 90 even, and we'll get there, because I do remind everybody that we'll be back with 41 is the mic on Sunday. Probably later on Sunday, early-ish Monday, because just that's the way our schedules are going to work. And obviously we'll be back next Tuesday throughout training camp, every Tuesday throughout training camp, with the live Q&A. There will also some other videos at Chiefs Digest throughout the week whenever the Chiefs are practicing. So hopefully there will be a lot of content for you. Some content coming up at Chiefs Digest tonight. Already a story up about Xavier Worthy, and what Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid had to say about him. So more stuff coming, and just the beginning, because tomorrow we get real football, Nick. We get to watch the rookies, and we're going to have a high old time.
Yeah, and remember, that's a closed practice, so that is not – don't try to show up for it. Don't try to get tickets for it. You're not going to be able to. And a reminder, if you haven't listened to 41 is the mic already from this past Sunday or from this past month, please do so and share it on your socials, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or to Facebook groups or wherever. Share the word of 41 is the mic with people far and wide, and we would greatly appreciate it. And like you said, football officially, for everybody that's watching right now, football officially starts on Sunday. Like Sunday, July 21st, football is officially back. And all these questions you have, we will start to be able to answer at that point as the arrowhead turns.
And then we'll have a bunch of brand new questions, Nick.
Yes. We won't be short of questions from now until hopefully middle to late February.
I'm not going to lie. I'm really looking forward to some brand new questions. So, I mean, you all on the channel here do a great job of bringing some questions. I can't wait until we get to dive into the depth of the knowledge base here. We get to really explore this 91 player roster and get into it, Nick. I'm excited. I can't wait.
Yep. If you, like I said, watch 41 is the mic. Share it with everybody. We need reviews. We need all that stuff.
Yes. So yeah, absolutely. Hit the like, hit the button, hit the bell to remind you of when you get notifications, so that you'll know when we're coming live or new videos are coming out. Please, if you do listen to 41 Mike, give us 5-star reviews and leave your comments there, because it will help other people find the podcast. Appreciate everybody's support. You are all kind once again. Appreciate it. And I love the discussion that you have in the comment section. Always enjoy checking that out. And once again, if we didn't answer your question or anything pops up, drop it on the YouTube channel. We Nick and I are in there consistently. So I try to answer them quickly. I'm behind on a couple of questions, but I will be diving into it in the next 24 hours. And I'll have anything that's up there now will get answered, or anything that you have, put it up there. We'll give you a response. So with that, everybody have a great week. We will hopefully see you around here on the YouTube channel. We will talk to you on 41 is the mic on Sunday, and enjoy everything that's going to be coming out of Chiefs training camp.
I bid you